Breaking news just in, and it is not good for the Boston Celtics. You're watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am Chase Sr. And Jaylen Brown, up to this point, he was having a career season, but the team just announced that he is going to be lost for the rest of the season, not just the regular season, the entire season. He was diagnosed with a torn left wrist ligament. He's going to be undergoing surgery later this week, gone for the season. A huge blow for the Boston Celtics as they lose their second best player, but Jaylen Brown up to this point of the season was having a career year. And since getting drafted third overall in the 2016 NBA draft, Jaylen Brown has been one of the most developmental stories in the league. His game has progressed so much from when he was selected out of Cal, and he's developed into one of the best two-way players across the entire NBA. You look at what he was doing this year, 24.5 points, 6 rebounds, shooting more than 48% from the floor and almost 40% from three. That goes to show you how much he was able to bring his game along, how hard he worked on his game, because Jaylen Brown, respected by so many people as a lethal two-way threat. And I understand the Celtics have been inconsistent for much of this season. It's been a maddening year for Boston. But anytime you have Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum in a series together, they have the ability to carry you through a long playoff run. And this is what the Celtics had tweeted about Jaylen Brown's injury. This past weekend, Celtics forward Jaylen Brown was diagnosed with a torn wrist ligament in his left wrist. Brown is expected to have the torn ligament surgically repaired later this week and will be out for the remainder of the 2020-2021 season. Now, a lot of Celtics fans watching might be saying, well, where did this injury come from? Because Jaylen Brown had just missed the prior 3 games with an ankle sprain that happened back on May 2nd when he got tangled up with Jayson Tatum at the end of that Portland Trailblazers loss. We're not sure when exactly this injury happened. We know that the Celtics had discovered it over the weekend, and then they send the release late on Monday afternoon, early evening, that Jaylen Brown is going to be lost for the season. One-word reaction to Jaylen Brown hurting his wrist and this injury news that has been the common theme for the Celtics so far this year. Let me know your one-word reaction in the comment section below. For me, it's maddening, because the Celtics just haven't been able to find a groove, and they've just been crushed by injuries this entire season. And because of that, there's been no lack of consistency, or there's been a lack of consistency. There has been no rhythm for this team, and that's why they've been such a frustrating watch, because they just haven't had any semblance of continuity. My other one-word reaction, because I'll give you 2, because that's how we do it up here on Celtics Today, it's maddening and it's done. I think the Celtics are done. I don't think there's any hope, any possibility that the Celtics are going to make a playoff run. I don't think that if they make it into the play-in tournament, expectations should be all that high, because they're missing one of the best two-way threats across the entire NBA. So maddening and done, my 2 one-word reactions after seeing this Jaylen Brown injury news. And when you look at the Eastern Conference standings right now, the Celtics, they've been hovering around 500 for this entire season, and lately they haven't been good. So you got the Sixers and the Nets and the Bucks in the 1 through 3 spots. Everything has kind of fluctuated from that point on. The Celtics have now dropped to 7th place in the East, 35-33. Had a monster game against the Miami Heat on Sunday, a game that had a lot of playoff implications, a game that was a litmus test for the Celtics. Yes, they were without Jaylen Brown, but a big game nonetheless, and they got boat raced. I mean, right from the get-go, they were just whacked. And that tells me that this team is what they are. They are an inconsistent team that has suffered a bunch of injury issues, but COVID issues as well. And this is why it's been such a frustrating, maddening year, is for those reasons, but also there's been such a lack of consistency. So rough year for the Celtics for these reasons that you're seeing on your screen right now. COVID issues, let's start with that. Jayson Tatum needs to use an inhaler prior to playing because COVID has affected him so much. Marcus Smart was out for a long time because of a calf injury. Tristan Thompson's COVID injury issues lingered as well, and he missed around a dozen games. Evan Fournier was the big deadline deal for the Celtics, and he was crushed by COVID as well and missed a lot more time than people had anticipated and expected. So those COVID issues killing this team, injury issues as well, which this team didn't have an opportunity to play much together. That's why they've been so inconsistent, and that's why their offense has looked so clunky down the stretch, especially in fourth quarters. So when it comes down to it, I mean, Celtics fans, it's just not the Celtics year. And I host a lot of Celtics Today shows, right? I see you guys chirping in the comments, letting your frustration be known. That's part of the beauty of what we do here at Chat Sports. We allow you to hop on board, join the show, and let us know how you're feeling. That's what we want you to do right now. What is your level of frustration with this Celtics season? Scale it for me in the comments from 1 to 10. Interested to see what you guys come up with. I'm going 10 because this year has been incredibly frustrating. The news broke of Jaylen Brown being done for the season, and you know what we did here at Chat Sports? We got together and we're churning out a show to bring you the latest on this team. That is why you subscribe to Celtics Today, the best Celtics coverage here on YouTube. If you're new to Chat Sports, we are an interactive YouTube channel. When stuff like this happens, we have you ready, we have you prepared and updated as to what's going on ASAP. So make sure you subscribe to Celtics Today by hitting that big red button down below. Go to youtube.com/CelticsTV, subscribe to the channel, and also turn on those notifications because when we do an instant reaction video like this, you'll be notified when that video is out. Where do the Celtics go from here? And what starting lineup is Brad Stevens going to trot out with Jaylen Brown being done for the year? I think it's going to look something like this. Kemba Walker playing point guard. Obviously, he belongs in that frustrating injury issue category because he wasn't able to start the season on time because of that knee injury. Can't play on the back end of back-to-backs. Let's say he starts at point guard. Marcus Smart, going to play the 2 now. So it looks as though already we're going to be seeing a smaller Celtics lineup. Evan Fournier, that big trade deadline acquisition, going to play a little 2-3 for the Celtics. He has rebounded from COVID and has been playing well. It looks as though his stamina is definitely better than it was when he originally came back from being in the COVID protocols. He can give you some minutes at the 2-3. Jayson Tatum has been playing like an MVP at times this year. No worries about him. He's averaging around 26 points per game. Now he has to shoulder more of the load. And while Robert Williams has been a very bright story for the Celtics this year, probably not a long-term starter, but he's going to continue to get minutes at the 5. As for the playoff picture in the Eastern Conference, this is where things stand right now. NBA play-in tournament starts on May 18th. The NBA playoffs start on May 22nd. Sixers, as of now, looks as though they have that number 1 seed locked down. They're going to play the 8 seed, which is to be determined in that play-in tournament. 4-5 matchup, really intriguing. Knicks-Hawks. 3-6, also an intriguing matchup, a rematch of a series last year in the NBA playoffs between the Bucks and the Heat. Nets playing that play-in game as well. And the Celtics, as we mentioned, 7th right now, and if the season were to end today, they would be in that aforementioned NBA play-in tournament. Their final 4 games, another game against the Heat in that back-to-back game with Miami. We'll see if they can fare better than they did on Sunday. Let's hope so, because they were crushed in that game. Wasn't even a contest from the jump. May 12th against the Cleveland Cavaliers, you have to think that is a very winnable game for Boston. May 15th against the Minnesota Timberwolves, another game for Boston to try and find a groove without Jaylen Brown. And then they round out the regular season with playing a red-hot New York Knicks team that has soared up the Eastern Conference standings. So that is how the rest of the schedule shakes out for Boston in the next 4 games, with them pretty firmly entrenched in that 7th spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs after losing to Miami on Sunday. Boston Celtics fans, do you think the Celtics can win an NBA title? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm going to go ahead and say no. Another question, do you think that the Boston Celtics can win a play-in game? A lot of Celtics fans might be leaning toward typing N for that. Can they win a playoff series? I'm going to go ahead and say no. I just don't think they have enough firepower, especially considering that this season has been so weird and clunky for this team. So get your votes in the comment section as we bring you the latest on Jaylen Brown being out for the rest of the season for the Boston Celtics with a torn ligament in his wrist.